Well, if I think of another example, maybe the plan is a better example, where they looked at
Yes,
a plan.
if it is a visual thing,
A visual
drawn
plan. Yeah.
in some sort of style, it's
Yes,
iconic.
yes.
An icon is an image of something.
So that was maybe a starting point for moving them on a little bit, looking at this map, this plan, I should say.
Oh, that's right, because you've got to have certain ways of all the class agreeing on things. And the iconic system of a plan, a scheme, a map, makes agreement possible.
Yes,
Oh yes, we all see there's a stream goes
Yes.
through the grounds
Yes.
here. The villa is Georgian,
Yes.
because the schema, the drawn schema, shows you that.
That's right.
If you then add notes to it, then you are adding symbols.
Yes.
So if it says 18th century villa made of brick with whatever, yew trees, whatever, then you've got iconic in the drawing and you've got symbolic, because a language is in symbols for meaning.
Yes. So
Drawings show shapes of things. Language, letters give you a symbol for a sound or for a meaning.
So our plan gave us the image, and maybe the words like public exhibition
That's
stand
right.
symbolised
Oh
things
yes.
going on there.
Exactly.
The public would need
They
to see.
create the common knowledge.
Yes.
You see, when you walk out in the real world does inform you. The shop doesn't move usually. I mean, I know these days they do, but basically speaking, your high street feeds you the same images you can rely on, like when you came into school. So in the drama, you've got to establish in the mind's eye of the children, the drama eye of the children, what is there that is not negotiable. If we are in a monastery and we draw water from a well, the well needn't be fixed in the classroom as a marked place. It can be in our minds, I'm going to the well, but what I'm not doing is turning on a hot water tap. It's a well. So you'd have to get that either through a ground plan of the monastery or the symbols that there is a well. I'm talking in symbols that we have a well. We've agreed we have a well. How do we get the water out? What shall we agree on? And symbolically we all tell each other. We don't have to draw the well necessarily. But if we want to know where the well is in relation to the dormitory or the chapel, then we need a ground plan. And we can see, to get from the dormitory to the chapel, look, you go past the well. We now all agree there. So if I'm stopping somebody and saying, where are you going, brother? Could you take this message to the abbot? Well, I'm actually not going there. I'm going over to the well. And we all know it's a non-negotiable thing. And the beauty of drawings, and they needn't be clever. I mean, I can't draw. I can only do ground plans. Then I have to rely on good pictures. This is how the monastery might look. Which of these three castles do you think we should have in our mind? Because I can't draw. And often people don't get the chance to collaborate with other teachers who could draw. Because actually you could team teach two classes together on a project like your store, for goodness sake. So you do need to have things that are not now negotiable. It's that castle, not this castle. That castle has a moat, so we have to have a drawbridge. So there is a drawbridge, and the drawbridge will be constantly referred to as part of the life of the castle. You see, is that adding up to some sense?
Yes, I was just wondering how it worked, why it worked.
Well,
How
I
could you
wouldn't worry
start
about
with-
the jargon.
No.
But when you draw something, all the class can gather around it. It could be a blackboard drawing. You don't have to have it prepared millions of days in advance. But you know what it's doing. It's fixing things we all agree on. And whatever we can use to define it more, we use words for. You see, I can't draw bricks as different from stone. I'm not good enough. But I can write bricks. So I know they're bricks.
So
That
that
makes
process is helpful to children when they move into the expressive mode. When they
It
move
must
into,
be.
now I'm behaving as if I'm
That's
in a
right.
store.
That's
Because
right.
they've looked at the plan.
That's
They've
right.
looked at this iconic like,
Yes.
plan. They've looked at
Yes.
the words that indicate what is
Exactly.
there, like the delivery room, the
Yes,
delivery room.
that's right.
There's public exit. There are entrances and
Yes,
exits.
yes. And you might have a discussion about handles and locks. And then when it's expressive, you know if you need keys. And you know if everybody has to have keys, you see. Because you've done it through the drawing which allowed group discussion. The common image, you see. And the discussion makes it our common culture. Now, of course, before you can begin this, then, you have to do what you always have to do in Mantle the Expert, and that is, you have to get them to feel like consultants before they interrupt their work to take on this very big job. So I then had to think, and I have a feeling I've lost the list. And if I've lost the list, it doesn't matter, I can remember them enough. Yes, I have lost the list. What to do with air could they already be working on? Because you see, we are called air soul. And I thought of all sorts of tasks that people could be engaged with. I remember one task, because you can start with small groups, in 10 minutes. There's a particularly difficult stretch of motorway where we want to plant some trees, but because the traffic funnels through, the pollution that comes up the verges will be quite tricky. And we wondered whether the air soul would advise us to plant trees or not. Because now that's a very specific problem.
Yes.
I thought of another one, and you can tell me I'm up the wall. I mean, I don't know, but this was the way I was thinking. The second one I thought of was these people who in high gales, when there's been terrible damage and electric cables have come down, is it possible to design? We've noticed that the normal clamps people are using and the sort of belts and straps, they can very easily be swung round by the nature of the tie. They don't fall off, but the wind can actually blow them sideways, and it's very easy. But we wondered whether in certain high places where the pylons are very, very high, whether it would be possible to design some system that would almost gale-proof, which would mean setting up a wind tunnel and checking on apparatus. What kinds of things can they bore into or clamp on, and so on. Now, I invented about 30 such jobs, and that would be probably, you saw me start in 2 tutorials ago. I started running a funeral home, and I started with bits of paper. Well, in this one, I would probably start it with who's dealing with those, well, they've written again to say, now this is where you need your courage,
Yes.
and you need to make contracts. So you see, you might say, listen, would you all agree that we work for this firm?
That would be the starting point.
It would be a starting point that's very safe. And would you agree that if I hand you these envelopes, you can take this least little thing, when you open them, shall we agree that our firm is busy trying to solve these problems?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see, you might just sit for 10 minutes talking about how are you getting on with that? And you start talking in now time, not what would you do if you had to solve a problem like that? That's over there time, now time. Have they phoned you this week? Has anybody been to see you? It's a bit thick when they give you a job and don't come to check on it. Have we priced that job? How many hours have you put in on it? You're talking extremely generally, and then you say, oh, by the way. Now, you see, at that point, the bell may go, and you say, oh, well, I'll keep the big job for tomorrow. And this would then be, they would feel a bit that they're sole
Yes.
consultants, you
Yeah.
see. The word consultant would trip off my lips a fair bit. I mean, they expect us to be consultants, and then they don't even bother to consult with us. So, have you not even been able to get through to the managing director? And what you're doing is you're empowering them to have power over the phones, you know, to go out and check things up and not report back to you. All
Right.
that general thing. And by the way, we haven't done a holiday rota yet. We mustn't forget. All the
Yeah.
things that they
Yeah.
know about happen, and if we could really do with more tables in the office.
And that bit is very dependent on the teacher. It's very.
Oh yes. Yes,
It all
yes.
hinges on how well you get
Yes,
that off
it's the
ground.
language. But you see, you can always stop and say, "Do you think what we're doing seems like people work? That people do work like this when they're consultants?" Well, if you like, you could make your own office desk. Now, you see, what does a consultant put on a desk that says, "This is not school, this is office"? Now, I might just fold a piece of paper and say, "I think I shall be called Dorothy Heathcote, Consultant Hurricanes." So I think I'll put that on my office, on my desk. What do you want to put on? Have a talk about it. You know, you can be as important as you like. And you might say whether we want to discuss whether there are some super consultants or whether there are some less super, you know. Well, I would rather, my preference is that we don't have any sort of status, because I'd rather go for stature. But if the class feels a little bit that way, then they'll all be in the 4-star, 5-star lot, and I'll be in a 1-star because really I tend to make the tea and do a bit of cleaning, you know, and so on. So that is a crucial point, and that's why I think you're wise to start with 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, making the desk might be another lesson. What sort of a worker are you? Which is a very important question in school. Like, some people might say, well, I've got 10 pens. I like coloured pens. They don't have to have the real pens, you know. They can draw 10 pens. Far better at that point to keep the real pens in the desk and draw 10, because that way they can dream. I would induct things like, I need a dictionary. I do need a dictionary. So I draw, you know, I just put on a piece of paper, dictionary, DH, do not remove. And someday, ideas spread around. People copy. Ooh, he's got 10 pens. I'll have 15. I'll have good biros. Somebody else might want an old-fashioned ink bottle. It can all be drawn. You only need to give them a piece of paper. Well, you don't drawing pin to desks, of course. A bit of blue tack. And they can breed their desk.
Yes.
As the desks are bred, you might be going around consulting. Oh, I see you've got an orange pen there. What sort do you find useful? You are using them as a consultant. Do you see?
Yeah.
Now, you might feel you need a week of that, 10 minutes now and again, just to get this importance. And then the next stage would probably be, do we have to have the desks like this? You know, in our consultancy, some people like to work with their backs, don't they? Some people are pally, you know. Now, I would always, with this sort of situation of making a desk, I would say my desk tends to get coffee rings. So I might draw myself my special DH cup, you know. I am the boss round here and the wife lets me be it. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. You'll find all kinds of cups. You might even get the odd wine glass. But, you know, I'll have some coffee rings drawn on my desk. Everything is meticulously placed in as part of the flavour of the worker I am, and some of it gets very truthful.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't make coffee rings. That isn't truthful. I would wipe them off. But it's suitable for me to have them, to show we get coffee when we want it, because we are consultants, you see. all the time you're working, I'm watching, and I'm saying to myself, I have established so far this. You know, in this case, we haven't yet established the terrain or anything, and we're just pretending we have because of time. I've established this, but they don't work here yet. I must never pretend they work here yet. One lady said, I deal with the flowers, and she had a friend who emerged to deal with the flowers as well. But my next stage would have to be putting it into the expressive mode and getting choices made for where they work. Now, if I do it as a teacher, I would say, hands up those of you who'd like to work in such and such. Well, I don't want to do that. That to me is ridiculous. So I say to myself, how many jobs are there around here? And make sure none of the jobs are going to make people fearful. So I'm not going to say who's laying out Mrs. Jones next door. Those are not jobs. So in role, I'm going to say, by the way, because of this new building, I thought we'd better just check up on the stores. Now, I laid that in, I seeded it at the meeting. Do you remember? When I said we'll have to make sure things are clear. So I'm standing, I mean, obviously I would do this in my mind first. I wouldn't just walk in and do it. I'm saying, by the way, who's been working on cleaning all those new green urns we got where the paint seemed to come off very early? Is anybody doing that at the minute? Now you see, what you get is eager beavers that want to do everything, and they'll volunteer. But you see, I've chosen a rather boring sounding job. Those new urns where the paint's come off. Is anybody cleaning them at the minute? I won't expect anybody to volunteer for that if they're actually listening. Oh, we've not started that yet. Okay, right. Well, we'll see to that in a minute. And I don't care if I don't get anybody to do anything. You know, they'll do it eventually, because there'll be an emergency for urns. You know. Have we done? Have we sorted out all the benches for the flowers? Now I'll look at this lady because she said she worked. Have we got a lot of flowers in store at the minute?
Yes, quite a lot. Whether you or delivery or Friday.
Yes. Are they the ones from Israel?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So there'll be a fair number of roses and they'll not smell, you know. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. Who's dealing with that special order of 15 yellow reeds for Colonel John? Now, 15 yellow reeds for Colonel John will attract some quite a lot. You know, the big ones, the ones where the roses are going to be all round. I thought they'd be rather nice, that. Who did that design? And you gradually win people. You won't win anybody to scrub the floor. You know, they'll not want to be bothered. So one of the tests you could do yourself is how many interesting jobs can I find? And they have to be quite simple. And you see, by the way, I noticed the clock still isn't working in the office. Is there anybody can just deal with that? Anybody understand electric clocks? It could be the battery. I don't know. You know, you'll get your volunteers. Now, I probably would have to think of orders more than anything, but what I don't want is dead bodies. Is that coffin for that model coffin that's going into that museum thing, is that finished for that child? You know, they were wanting to show, I don't know what the exhibition's about, they wanted a child's coffin. Has anybody done that yet? And somebody will volunteer for it. Now, what you're doing is sitting back, because I'm not structuring it so that it looks like you've come into it. Now, of course, you must play for safety. Now, I can give you examples. In Cathy Berry's study, I think you'll find that the children were museum keepers. And the different jobs there, you see, that eventually won out were, who was assembling that Egyptian watch? Because they had this notion an Egyptian watch would look like a pyramid. I mean, they were only little. So this boy and his gang were doing that. Somebody else was cleaning all the flower pots, ready to plant them all up for a big exhibition, and so on and so on. They're all very simple jobs. Can you think of any? Mending the pipes for the cold room, making sure all the taps work and have new washers in. As long as it sounds as if it would be interesting to tackle. Getting the van unloaded with all the flowers in, you know, that are coming in soon for a big funeral. Getting them all in water and storing them all in the cold room. Taking the spades and planting out the wallflowers down in this bed at the front here. So some are tough guy jobs, you know, and cutting the lawn all the way around there. Is that lawnmower working again? Well, you better use the old one then, you just have to push. And so on. And people will get themselves into cahoots and groups, and you know damn well which you're going to skive off and which just want a bit of excitement, you know. Hanging up some things in the church, or clearing some ivy out that we've had for the Harvest Festival. It doesn't much matter. It can be outdoors, it can be indoors, and a lot of the outdoor ones that the lads will probably pick will be to do with has that big block of stone been safely stored yet? Because the last time I saw it, it looked topply. Who was on that job? Have you time to get back to it? You can't suggest they left it dangerously. Now at this point, things are very busy and messy looking. Okay, do you need any keys? Do you all know where you're at? Okay, well I'll tell you what, I'll go in the office, I'll see if there's any mail, and I'll come round. Now we find if they're little, they're at your elbow. You know, I can't find the chisel for the, you know, no, I don't suppose you. Has anybody seen the chisel for the what's it? And it sounds like mayhem. If you give it a minute or two, people get grown up. It's quite amazing how grown up they get.